future is Game Pass. AI will do that. Hardware's over. I think Microsoft can become a powerhouse. It's been 10 years. It's coming. I think part of Sony's problem is
Michael Pachter, you're back. Thank you so much for hanging out with me to talk a little bit about the games industry. Maybe we start there this time because everybody's talking about their predictions for 2024. How are you feeling about 2024 at the start of the new year?
As far as content, some great content. We don't really know everything yet. And I think that, we started out getting psyched about GTA coming and now we know it's not. I think that the disappointment that was Call of Duty makes people kind of question now what's coming out in the fall that they care about. But Nintendo's had some really good cadence. Bethesda's had some really good cadence. So I expect that we'll continue to see great titles. I don't know that Nintendo can top, Tears of the Kingdom, but they've had a lot of great games. I'm not really worried about having stuff to play. I play plenty of mobile. There's always something else to do. To be honest with you, I'm looking forward to Star Wars Hunters because I think that just sounds fun to me. I'm actually looking forward to Skull and Bones.
Me too.
Yeah, that's the last Assassin's Creed that I played through and I really liked. So I'm going to play Valhalla one of these days, but that game was fun. And it's one of those things that I was really psyched about in 17, 18. And yeah, I was so psyched. And then you kind of forget about it every year. You laugh and it's actually finally coming next month. So
specifically diving into a few things, what about hardware? Like, do you think the new Switch is going to come out or no?
No, 100% it's coming out. And, I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, they're not telling anybody ahead of time. And they didn't want to kill Switch sales, but Switch sales were down pretty heavy in the fall. And, part of that, I think, is that supply caught up with demand and had been caught up all year. Part of it is that they kept the price too high, so it's been, 6 years, and they hadn't cut price materially, $50, I think, from the launch price. But I think part of it is people really do expect the new version to come out. And the question is, is the new version going to be just a faster, clearer version? And honestly, the Switch OLED looks great in the handheld, not as great on your TV screen. So can they clean that up? Sure. Are they going to? Sure. Are they going to charge too much? Yes. So is it going to be something materially different like the Wii U was? I don't think so. I think it's truly going to be another Switch. Maybe the handheld version will have an extra inch bigger screen or something, but nothing. I doubt it's going to be 12 inches, but it'll be, 9.5. It'll be something nice. And again, I would be happy if they go with a 10 or 12 inch Switch and get rid of the TV hookup altogether and give me a really high powered, OLED screen in my hands. I don't mind playing it that way at all. And, I don't do this, but you can set it up on a stand and play, with the Joy-Con connected together. So if people really are dying to play a console game, they can do it that way as well. That's how you and I used to play console games back when, the biggest TV out there was 32 inches.
Right. What about the competition on the market?
Is Sony going to do something different? No. Are they going to cut price materially? Probably finally. You probably will get a $299, PlayStation by year end. I think that they really do want to sell more units than the last cycle, and I think they're going to have to do that. Microsoft, I think, is far less concerned about selling Xboxes than selling Game Pass subscriptions. You heard last month, Tim Stewart, the CFO of Xbox, talk about an ad-supported Game Pass, as something they're considering. They're not going to be selling people a console who are too cheap to pay $15 a month. If you're too cheap to pay $15 a month and you're willing to watch ads, it's because you're not going to buy a console. And the ultimate, outcome of Game Pass is that you play without a console. So Microsoft is going in that direction. I don't know that it's imminent. It's a 2024 event, but it's definitely a this decade event. That we're going to have fast enough internet speeds. You may end up with some small download to a client, to your PC that'll route through your house or something. But ultimately, you're just going to stream everything, and it's going to be just like Netflix, and that'll work. So I don't think you'll see much innovation from Xbox. If anything, I think they're going to continue to push the Series, I always get the mix up. The S is the cheaper one. They're going to push the Series S, maybe come up with a Series Y, that's even cheaper. It's $150 and essentially is just a dumb internet device so you can play Game Pass. And I could see them doing something like that, like selling you a box that is the proxy to play Game Pass and making that box free if you sign up for Game Pass, or making it $50, so maybe you'll see innovation like that again, not 2024, probably 2025. So no, hardware is over. Hardware is going to be for the guys who have to have the best, the latest and the greatest and the best. And it's sort of like, will there still be gas, combustion engine cars in the future of EV? Yeah, rich guys will have them, and they'll have $1 million Bugattis, but there won't be very many places to drive them, but they'll have them. So I think that the future is Game Pass, and I think that ultimately, just like movie streaming, everybody's going to join. It doesn't mean it's the end of theaters and TV. There'll still be consoles, but each cycle's going to successfully be smaller.
Hi, I'm up late editing this right now. So if you're still watching, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you like what you see, or hit that like button if you're already subscribed. Let's get back to it. You brought up services a little bit there for a second, in cloud streaming. Xbox sounds like they're going to want to get into the mobile market. Like they're actually going to get a dip their toe in the water, so to speak, a very heavy investment there. Do you think that's going to happen this year, or is that a future play?
Well, I mean, post the acquisition of Activision, they're kind of in the mobile market in a big way. I mean, Activision Mobile is about $4 billion a year. And they already had Minecraft, and I don't know how big that is mobile because it's kind of a different pricing model, but it's probably close to $1 billion. So they're a $5 billion company, which is, twice as big as Zynga. I mean, they're pretty big. Do I think that we will see more Activision Blizzard titles on mobile? For sure. Ultimately, that Mike Morhaime announced, back in 2014, that they were working on Warcraft Mobile. And here we are 10 years later. And we've heard that they scrapped it and then they're restarting it. That's coming. I don't know if it's coming this year, but it's coming. I don't think StarCraft would be a good mobile game. I think it'll be too hard, but maybe. I think Skylanders would be a phenomenal mobile game. And rather than collect plastic figurines with a near field communication chip in them, collect virtual characters. Why not? Like Pokemon Go or something.
Or Marvel Snap.
Certain that's coming back as well. Right. So, I think that the Activision lineup is pretty robust and lends itself to mobile. Bethesda had Fallout Shelter, which again, fun, but there was nothing to actually buy, nothing to really do. But a lot of people played it. I mean, it had like 100 million downloads. So you could take a lot of those titles. I mean, you could take an Elder Scrolls and make it into something, I think. I don't know that that's imminent, but I think it's coming. So I think Microsoft also is in a position to, once they realize how good they are at mobile, to expand, license content, do other things. This Monopoly Go game, I mean, EA had a Monopoly game, and I don't think it did $50 million a year, and here we get Scopely doing it, and it's probably pushing $2 billion.
Wow.
It isn't the IP, it's the game maker. The King guys are pretty good. The Blizzard guys have proven to be pretty good. I think Microsoft has the resources and the will to actually get really good at this. So sure, there's opportunity. But, I think that the smarter thing for them to do would be to open Game Pass to free-to-play mobile. And, think about the Epic versus Apple and Epic versus Google lawsuits where you couldn't play Fortnite on iOS or on Android. What if you just said, okay, Fortnite's on Xbox, Fortnite's on Game Pass. Anybody who plays Game Pass on any device, Fortnite's there. And oh, by the way, Epic, you're right, we'll take 15%, or 12 or something, less than 30. I think Microsoft could become the Switzerland of mobile and tell every mobile publisher, put your game on our platform on Game Pass, and we'll charge you 15%. And you would suddenly see everything on Game Pass, because why not? They have 35 million, something like that, 30 million subscribers. Instantly you get 30 million more people playing something. And if to the extent any of them were playing your slot game or your Call of Duty game, they're playing mobile on Game Pass. What the hell? You're making more money. So I think Microsoft can become a powerhouse by emulating, what Epic tried to do with the Epic Store, a low rate, and leveraging its giant subscriber base. And I expect that they will do that. They're smart enough to do that.
Yeah, I think like online, it's just not a good representation of what strategy is actually being implemented by Microsoft. Because sure, console sales are less, but you've talked about it before with me, where console sales are kind of flatlined. Like they're just kind of at this point where they're not growing the way that you would hope. Where do you see the PlayStation 5 coming in, like at the end of its life cycle? I believe the PlayStation 4, I want to say, was 150 million. We're at 50 million right now with the PlayStation 5. Where do you see it capping at?
Well, we're at 50 after exactly 3 years. So it's easy to get to double. It gets harder to get to triple. So, I'd say clearly above 100 and below 150. The biggest driver is price. If they make it cheap, I mean, it's not a joke. This is a true anecdote, but Prince, the late great musician, he had an album that I think at the time set an all-time record for the most sales. And it was because he gave every single person who attended one of his concerts that year a copy of the album. And, but he said it was part of the ticket price. So they sold the album, but they're free, and I got one. My wife and I each got one because we went to see Prince. You can give PlayStations away and hit 200 million, 300 million, 500 million. You put one on every doorstep. I'd say that the next 50 million will take 4 years if they don't cut price dramatically. And the next 50 million after that will take 6. And I don't think this thing has 10 more years. So 120-ish.
Okay. I'm going to write that down.
It depends on price. If the price is $50, they'll hit 150 next year,
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see just generally where the industry goes, especially with stuff like AI. So how big of a role do you see AI playing over the next 5 years?
Well, let me just go back to one thing. Think about how many people saw a movie in the 1940s, or better, let's go percentage of the U.S. population. Maybe the U.S. population is 150 million people. How many saw a movie in the theater in 1940? And the answer is, 75 million people went to the movies. And the answer now is maybe it is 150 million or 180 million, so same percentage. But how many people see movies? And the answer is 330 million, because they're on TV and they're on Netflix, and you've got a million different ways to see them. So if you expand the distribution of content, you're going to get a lot more people playing games. And the money is not in hardware, the money is in software. So, if you want 100 million people to play Call of Duty instead of 25, you make it mobile and you get 100 million people playing Call of Duty. And if you want 200 million people playing Call of Duty, you put it on Game Pass, and you just load Game Pass up with so much content then it becomes like Netflix and everybody subscribes. So I really think that's the direction of the industry. On the AI front, AI we're like in one out in the first half, bottom of the first inning, or top of the first inning, excuse me. We just started. So, where's it going? I think that AI, the analogy I think for software development is the same as robotics in an auto plant. I worked in an auto plant, believe it or not, when I was in college one summer, and I made the minimum wage at the time was like, I don't know, $3 or $4 an hour, $5 an hour, and I made 22. So it was like amazing pay. And I put 2 bolts in the door of a Firebird. And this door would come from the sky on hooks, and the Firebird body would be coming down the assembly line. And all I had to do was line the door up with the holes and drop a bolt top and bottom. That's it. Every 3.5 minutes, one door. And it took me maybe 30 seconds, once I got good at it, a minute when I wasn't. I have to walk a little bit. But my God, so easy. Guess what? That job doesn't exist anymore. Machines do that. So there's an old Toyota ad. You can look it up on YouTube. And it shows an auto factory. It's a time-lapse photography. And there's literally 2 people in the picture. One is the guy who's going to hit the stop button if something starts to blow up. And the other guy is the backup in case the first guy has a heart attack. I mean, they do nothing. So that's AI. So will we replace everybody in game development? No, because you still have people designing the cars, right? The lines and engineers designing all the components, and machinists who actually hone all the machines that put the cars together. So no, you're going to still have the human element. It's just that the quality testers are going to go away eventually, because you can do that with machine learning and AI. And I'd say the background artists are going to go away, but you're going to have a lead artist who's going to create the initial art, and then they're going to train AI. Let's say you want to do a cyberpunk type landscape. You feed in all the cyberpunk art, and AI will do it for you. And you can say, this is 2077, do 2099, make it 20 years more advanced. AI will do that. And then you'll still have an artist reviewing it and tweaking it and making it pretty. But much like when I started work, my first law job, I literally had a notepad and a pen, and I hand wrote out everything I wanted to write. And then I handed it to a secretary who typed it into, I want to say it was a IBM 360 mainframe computer, but she typed it in, and then we'd proof it and she'd make the changes. And, now obviously I have a PC and I don't have a secretary. So what happened? Secretary went away, and my time, I got more efficient because I can type way faster than I can handwrite, and I can edit on the fly, and review and preparation of a document takes me about a third as much time. So I'm more efficient. And yeah, there's no more secretary in my profession. But is that bad? No, that secretary got retrained as an IT professional, making sure that the systems work, And so I think that's what's going to happen with game development. I think that you're going to get much more time for creatives to create. And I don't see budget shrinking. I think that developers will spend more money making games even bigger and better. But the next GTA might not take 10 years of AI. It might take 8 and be twice as big. So that's where I see it going. And I think that's good for everybody. I think consumers win because they're going to get better content. And I think that, developers win because they can spend a lot less time worrying about tedious things and a lot more time on creation.
How do you feel? It's a good jumping off point to sort of discuss. How do you feel about the current state of the industry, really? Because we have a lot of tumultuous things happening. There were a ton of layoffs last year in the games industry. Games are costing more and more to make, and profit margins are getting thinner. How do you think everything's going to how do you feel in here at the start of 2024 about the future of the games industry?
This phenomenon started about 2007. I think that the Wii caught everybody off guard, and I think the beginning of free-to-play mobile caught everybody off guard. And we had this rush to try to grow by making more games, and everybody tried to make mobile and failed. Everybody tried to make Wii games and failed. And we had this massive retrenchment around 2011 where everybody decided to shrink and make fewer and fewer games and bigger bets. So I remember back in 2007, Electronic Arts made 47 different titles, 47. And, now they make 5, I don't know, 7, whatever, not very many. They realized, and the same thing happened in the movie industry. Back in 2002, the major studios in the U.S. made 200 independent separate titles. And in 2019, so pre-COVID, 120, and that number continues to shrink. Led by Disney, they don't make romantic comedies anymore. They don't make The Parent Trap. They don't make Herbie the Love Bug. They make, Avatar. They make Avengers. So everybody in the games industry is kind of doing the same thing. And unfortunately, it means that major studios, they have the overhead where they need to generate hundreds of millions of dollars on a title. And when it looks like they're not going to do that, they lay people off. And I don't think that most game companies are led by the best business people. I think that with the exception of Activision, and Bobby Kotick was incredibly unpopular, but a business person. So they tend to not get things right. They tend to not hire exactly the number of people that they need. And in good times, they overhire, and in bad times, they overfire. And equilibrium is to figure out how many people you need to make a title and hire that many. It's 100, 200, 300, whatever it is, and keep them employed and kind of have a budget and kind of have a time frame and get it done on time. Honestly, I'd say probably the best developer in the industry as far as just getting what he's got to do done on time is Vince Zampella. His games, always came out on time. I don't think he ever missed a launch date, and good quality. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, Sam Hauser, who is a great developer, but deadline, no, done when it's done when it's done. Now, which is better? Well, I think a lot of people would say they'd much rather have one Grand Theft Auto in their adult lifetime, if it's the best game ever, than 5 Call of Duty titles, whatever. But if you're running a business, you want Vince to run the business, because he gets stuff out on time. Rod Ferguson, who has been at a bunch of places, but Gears of War, BioShock with Irrational, and now Diablo, he's another one of those guys. Games get out on time and they're good. I don't know what it is. I don't know what these guys have for breakfast, but they're really good at it. But you haven't heard about a lot of layoffs at the Blizzard Diablo studio or at Respawn. You haven't, because they staff right and their games get out on time. The other guys, they staff up, they staff down. They can never figure out what the right business model is. And the surprise to everybody, I mentioned 2007, 2011. 2007 was, iPhone and Wii and people, it just took the consumer in a different direction, and the game studios were all caught off guard. 2011 was kind of that pivot to everybody making really big multiplayer games, and they didn't all work, and Call of Duty sucked all the wind out of the room. It happened again in 2016 or 15 when Fortnite came out, and it diverted a lot of people. It happened again when Pokemon Go came out, and it diverted a lot of people. I mean, I got to be honest, Monopoly Go is sucking up hundreds of millions of hours of time. And don't think that's your mom playing. That's gamers playing. It's a good game, and And if you're playing that for 20 hours a week, then you're not doing something else for 20 hours a week. I laugh because Reed Hastings said that, that Netflix doesn't compete with TV or with games, it competes with sleep. And in a way, that's true. We've all caught ourselves staying up to watch one more episode of a show. But realistically, over time, you're going to get the same amount of sleep. You're going to dedicate the same number of hours to playing games. And if you're playing Monopoly Go, you're not playing something else. So Fortnite dipped when Monopoly Go got big. Did Lego Fortnite hit Roblox? We'll find out. And that's the great thing about the industry. All these games continue to evolve and get better and better, and consumers get better experiences, and we should demand them. But the guys who create them want steady jobs and steady paychecks and don't want to get laid off at Christmas time. So, I completely understand why that's bad for the industry. Good planning is good for everybody.
Yep, for sure. I'm trying not to talk because we have a little bit of a weird audio issue. So I'm just trying to be quiet when you're answering. So if I feel a little more disconnected, that's what's going on. It's my production brain kicking in. Last time you were here, though, we talked all about the FTC, and you basically laid out exactly what happened, exactly what transpired. And a lot of people thought it was all over, and of course Microsoft came through. However, there's still one thing lingering. The FTC is still appealing and considering bringing this to court. Why, in what world do you think they have a reason? Let me rephrase that. Why would they ever bring it to court? Why are they still going?
The FTC won a big case in 1984, and they broke up AT&T. They forced them to divest of, all the different divisions, and that's where Southwest Bell came from. And anyway, it's all rolled back into AT&T now. But they broke them up, and it turned out to be terrible for the consumer. It ended up being worse. And I think that the head of the FTC is Lena Khan. I think she's emboldened by the fact that there's precedent to break somebody up. She can prevail if she can prove that she was right from the beginning, that this is anti-competitive. And in order for her to prevail, she's going to have to show that Microsoft price fixed, and they're not going to, they're not going to raise price, or unfairly disadvantage the PlayStation, Sony, and they're not going to. So by the time it gets to court, she's going to have no facts, nothing. And even though I thought that they were completely out to lunch with their demands, the CMA ended up prevailing and forcing Activision to divest of its streaming rights to Ubisoft, which have as yet to be licensed to Microsoft. So Microsoft doesn't have any streaming rights to any Activision titles. I mean, they might get streaming rights to a brand new IP that hasn't been invented yet, because it won't be invented by Activision. Technically, it'll be invented by Microsoft. But Call of Duty and the aforementioned Skylanders and whatever, they don't have those rights. Diablo. So she's got nothing there either. So I honestly think that she is wasting taxpayer dollars and wasting our time. The crazy thing about the FTC, and look, Democrat, voted for Biden. I believe in competition, and I think the FTC's mission is a sound one. She's an idiot, and she shouldn't be running the entity. And Biden was a fool to listen to his advisors and appoint at the time 33-year-old, now 34-year-old, to run the FTC. She's just a complete idiot. She has a hard-on for big tech. And so her other big case is Amazon sells white label stuff, which hurts brands. I don't know if you've ever been in a grocery store, but go into a grocery store and you know what you're going to find? Grocery store brand sparkling water and grocery store brand napkins and paper towels and actually probably instant coffee. Like everybody does it. If you haven't been to a grocery store, you've been to Costco or Walmart, Kirkland brand, Sam's Club, They all sell private label merchandise. All of them. They all have forever. Trader Joe's sells frickin' scotch. So why is it that when Amazon does it, it's bad, but when Walmart does it, and they've been doing it for 80 years, it's okay? The answer, Lena Khan's an idiot. So she's got a hard on for big tech. She's going to go after Microsoft. She's going to lose. It's just that is the white label thing is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Now, I understand if Microsoft was doing things like overtly suppressing the appearance of any other competing product. I use I think I can show it to you. I use Microsoft white label. I'm sorry, Amazon white label printer paper, and I know 100%. I know this. It has the same exact specs as Hammer Hill Bond printer paper because I compared the two, and I bought 5 reams probably 3 years ago, so it's been forever. But I paid $20 a ream at Microsoft. I'm sorry, I keep saying Microsoft, at Amazon, and Hammer Hill Bond was $22. Do you know how I knew the difference in price? They were right next to each other on my screen. So is Amazon suppressing Hammer Hill Bond? No. And if I wanted Hammer Hill paper because I perceived that the brand is better, then I would have bought it. And by the way, I do buy branded products occasionally, on Amazon. But my wife and I both had this nagging cough. I bought Amazon brand Tussin DM, which is Robitussin, but not made by Robitussin. We ran out. We wanted it that day. I went to Rite Aid. Guess what I bought? Rite Aid brand Tussin DM, and the boxes are identical, but Amazon says Amazon on it, and Rite Aid says Rite Aid on it. Guess what? There's a company that makes Tussin DM and white labels it for everybody. How are you going after Amazon and not going after Rite Aid? Again, just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So the answer is FTC has a 0.0% chance of prevailing. The remedy, if they were to prevail, would be to break up the deal and force Microsoft to sell off Activision. The way they would sell it is they would take it public again so that they let the public buy it. But that's a 0.0% chance of happening.
Yeah, I actually know a bit about white label, so it's cool that you brought up that comparison. I sold cookies for 2 years, and we stopped the business because it's just too much with 2 little kids. And then there was some drama about a cookie business. And I'm like, yeah, I actually know a lot about this, having run a cookie business. So yeah, white label is actually a really interesting topic. And I didn't know that they were trying to break that up. Agree. Absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, white label is just good for the consumer. And again, I drink 5 cans of sparkling water a day. Like, that's just my thing. And for years, I drank Kroger brand water, 25 cents a can. And then, I don't know, Bubbly and LaCroix started selling for like 35 cents a can. And I just like the flavors better. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to splurge for 10 cents. It is water with bubbles. Like, I know that, and I pay 10 cents a can more. It costs me 50 cents a day over the course of the year. It costs me $180. I tough it out because I like the flavors better. But the white label's there for the guy who doesn't have that extra $180 and wants to drink a lot of white label, sparkling water. So that's good for the consumer, the idea that it's there.
You got to get that LaCroix sponsorship over on Pachter.
I was at the store today because I had to buy some hot sauce, but they had LaCroix 3 for $10, and I was so tempted. I was like, ooh, that's really cheap. Yeah. So
I want to ask you a gaming question, but what's your go-to hot sauce? Mine's Frank's.
Oh, see, I say hot sauce. I use it's really salsa. So I use Salsa Brava. I use La Victoria Salsa Brava hot for just sauce. We obviously have Tapatio and Cholula, but I don't care. I'm a Mrs. Renfro's salsa guy, and they have many hot ones. My favorite, Carolina Reaper, and I'm going to tell you now, you can put a teaspoon of that in a bowl of chili, and it will make you sweat. 1 teaspoon. It's that hot. So Frank's is like fine. Frank's is like chicken wing sauce. I mean, it's fine. And it's good if you like chicken wings. I mean, but I don't like hot sauce. I like Mexican, salsa or or Mexican sauce. So
Makes sense.
Mrs. Renfro's Carolina Reaper. They have habanero. They have ghost. Oh, so they go green salsa, which is hot, then jalapeno, which is slightly hotter, habanero, which is slightly hotter, ghost pepper, which is slightly hotter, and then Carolina Reaper. Try the Carolina Reaper.
No way. My friend grows those. I'm not. It's literally the hottest pepper in the world, right?
I get two jars of Carolina Reaper a month. I'm on Amazon, subscribe and save, and I go through 2 jars a month.
You're crazy.
So an ounce a day. I eat an ounce a day.
Bringing it back to gaming for a
We're having
second.
tacos tonight, by the way, so I'm going to have some.
See, now I want something spicy. But back to gaming. What does Nintendo need to be focusing on? You think their big play is the hardware then this year?
I for years was critical of Nintendo, and mostly it's because the GameCube was bad. The Wii I thought was really lucky. The Wii U was terrible. And then they just got it right with the Switch. But more important than getting the hardware right, because the Wii I still think was a fad. It was fun, but it was a fad. And by the way, DS and Game Boy Advance and DS, the 3DS, those were all great. But they were handheld only, and the Switch is really a console. Like you're playing Zelda. So, I mean, it's really a console. But what they really got right is the cadence of frontline big games. There have been pretty much every single year, 2 big, popular, like mega popular Nintendo, first party titles, and 2 lesser but still good Pikmin type, Nintendo first party titles, and 1 or 2 Bayonettas, that are just great. So they've just got it right. And this year, I didn't need to ask me the first question. Mario Kart 9 it's a launch title for Switch too. It'll probably launch 3 months early on the Switch with a Switch bundle, for $249, including Mario Kart 9, and they'll sell 10 million of those. But that game came out in 2014. It's Mario Kart 8. It's been 10 years. It's coming. That is the time. So Nintendo just has, I counted once, 30 brands that are really popular, that have sold 10 million units or more. Nobody else has more than like 5. It's just crazy how big they are and how good they are. Yoshi, when's the last time we got a good Yoshi title? And they're great. WarioWare, great. There's just so many of them. Luigi's Mansion. I mean, they have a million of them that you don't think about, because we all think about Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and Zelda and Mario Brothers. But wow. So I'm so impressed with that company. Everything's been great. It comes out exactly the right pace. The hardware is due, and they're gonna get there exactly on time. And they're kind of in between cycles, and we'll still buy a Switch even though we don't play Game Pass.
Last one for you, and we can kind of jump off starting with Nintendo. What could Nintendo learn from Sony and Microsoft? What could Sony learn from Microsoft and Nintendo? And what could you get where I'm going, right? What could Microsoft learn from the other two? Like, what could they learn from each other?
The biggest thing Nintendo doesn't do that the other guys are dabbling with, and I would not say Sony, but publishers, is a free-to-play version. And I think the problem with free-to-play is that a free-to-play game never ends. So it's like a TV series that just has 20 seasons and keeps going, as opposed to a movie. A video game is more like a movie that has a beginning, middle, end. And Nintendo is not really good at never-ending sagas. They don't know how to do that. So I understand why they haven't succeeded at free-to-play. But I think what they could learn from Microsoft is subscription. And I think they could take Nintendo Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS titles and put them into a streaming subscription. And I would say a mobile subscription. Don't even require a Switch. They won't do this. They'll require you to buy it on Switch. But if they want to do it, first do it on Switch and just say, for Nintendo, I forgot they call it Nintendo Online. Mm-hmm. I think they charge like $3 a month or something. I think that's what I'm paying. Make it 5 or 7 and give me 5 games a month and have them be Game Boy Advance games, Mario Brothers 3, whatever. And they could do that forever. And you would suddenly see 200 million people buy Switches, and all of them pay these guys $5 or $7 a month. Their revenues would go through the roof. And I know they're aware of this concept because I have had 2 meetings with Furukawa, and I told him, and he listened, and he took notes, and he acknowledged that was something they would certainly consider. But that would be frame breaking. And I think they're just very cautious, and they're waiting to see how Microsoft does with Game Pass. But I think they could learn from that. I think that Sony was great with the cadence of their game releases, their first party releases, and it just kind of dried up. And I would say that is like traffic, where everything's moving smoothly, and then you get all bunched up and everybody's backed up, and then it takes a while to get out of the traffic jam, and then you move smoothly again. I think Sony got ahead of itself with its cadence. And I think, how many PS5 exclusive first party titles have there been? 1, 2, I don't know, not many. And the console's 3 years old. They should have had one every year, 2 every year. Nintendo's had 4. So Sony could learn that notwithstanding, and I think part of Sony's problem is they rest on their laurels and they go, we sold 50 million copies, units. But do you know a PS5 owner who's happy with the first party lineup? Every game they put out has been PS4 and PS5. So why did you need a PS5 to play it? I think except 2. But why did you need it? Because you could have had a PS4 Pro and you would have been just as happy. So they could learn about cadence. Microsoft, I think, has emulated Sony in how they've been acquiring studios. And they probably haven't bought as many great studios as Sony has. I mean, Sony's probably 10, but the Ninja Theory guys are great, and I think that's going to turn out to be a really successful one. The Obsidian guys are pretty good, certainly not as good as Insomniac, but pretty good. Bethesda is phenomenal, and Activision Blizzard phenomenal. So Microsoft's going to catch up in a hurry, and I think the cadence of new titles for them is going to be amazing. So they did already learn that. So Sony can learn from from Nintendo. Nintendo can learn from Microsoft, and Microsoft's already learned from Sony.
Cool. Well, Michael Pachter, thank you for joining again and hanging out to chat video games in the industry. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, Destin, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end, and a big thank you to Michael Pachter for joining us. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you like this sort of content, hit the like button if you are already subscribed. Thank you so much to the members for making these videos possible. I really do appreciate you. Click that join button if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much. If you want to see the previous interview I did with Michael Pachter, where he made a lot of predictions, that might be sort of fun. Check it out right here, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.